None of y'all can fuck with the captain. Verbal assassin, toe tagging all of you bastards. Closed caption. Or that, this, or that. Get with this, or that, this, or that. Here they come, yo. Here they come. 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 Come. This, or that. This, or that. This, or that. This, or that. Engine number 9 on the New York Transit line. If my train goes off the track, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Back on the scene, crispy and clean.
I want you to stand up tall and proud. I want you to speak up clear and loud. Brown baby.
I go nuts, I'm talking a straight sicko. Don't trust not one of these hoes, cause all these bitches is fickle. Give a fuck about death of that nigga holding a sickle. I go harder than Rick when he turned himself to a pickle. Know that every decision you make is gonna cause a ripple. Why you catching with a glass jaw, you know that shit brittle. I ain't letting nothing slide, no not one jot of tittle. I just keep it plain and simple, me no speaking, no riddles. Valley of the dry bones, need some tissue and sinew. Because my people on that dope was talking bits of that kibble. My nigga won't come to New York because he can't bring his pistol. Messing with any of my family, I'ma make you a cripple. I'm the Kobe of this bitch, the way he dribble, I scribble. Want a whole rack of ribs, I'm talking dimes and no nickels. If you got them things pissed, I'm trying to nibble some nipples. And we ain't got no love for heathens, all these nations is spittle. Whoa. 29 in my prime, haters can't stop my shine. Nigga, don't waste my time. You got a problem, then cross that line. Point them out and I'll embarrass them. Realest nigga in it, no comparison. And they got the nerve to tell me that I'm arrogant. But what the fuck a young Hispanic made it in America? And I'm addicted in every city to itty bitty, said itty bitties with round booties and fat kitties. So girl, know I get around like gypsies. Broads in different area codes from here to Poughkeepsie. And I like my music gritty, I blame that on 50. They family if they with me, most these niggas is shifty. Used to be my dog, you was in my left titty. Found out you a bitch, they can't even ride with me. They can't stand the rain like Missy. If you can't handle pain, you squishy. How you switch sides for a team that's that shitty? My soldiers ready for war, you sissies dancing like Diddy. You gotta soldier up, boy, you can't be bitchy. Cause I know one thing, it's for certain, crackers showing no pity. Police killing niggas, trigger fingers is itchy. And after they murder your ass, they gonna harvest your kidneys. 29 in my prime, haters can't stop my shine. Nigga, don't waste my time. You got a problem, then cross that line. Point them out and I'll embarrass them. Realest nigga in it, no comparison. And they got the nerve to tell me that I'm arrogant. But what the fuck, I'm young, black, surviving in America. Then in the middle, little did we know that we rid of some middlemen who didn't do that.
So y'all think it's just about us in here, but this is about the present fucked up system designed to keep niggas down and shit. Y'all wouldn't know nothing about that. What about you, little nigga? You know about that?
Yes.
Oh, you know about that? Tell me what you know about that. Tell me what you think about that.
Shalom, Israel. Yahweh Shem Yahshai Barakatham to all the brothers. Yahweh Shemar Alathah Bashem Yahshai to all the sisters. Priest and officer of 50 Shah 1 under commanding General Yahanna. And we are the I.S.U.P.K. Just started out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Tonight, all across UPK, I.S.U.P.K, there's a school all across the world that is teaching brotherhood. All right? Every school all across the world, every school that's under commanding General Yahanna, tonight they are teaching brotherhood class. All right? Brotherhood is a weapon. Brotherhood is what Christ taught blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians in order for us to come together. Christ taught blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians how to treat each other. He taught us how to truly love each other, how to show compassion on one another. You understand? And build our nation up. Everything about this Bible is brotherhood. You understand? Everything about this Bible is following the Most High, doing what he says. And by doing what he says, we love ourselves and love our people. All right? So tonight's Tuesday Night Brother class is about the characteristics of our King Christ. You understand? A lot of what the Christian church has taught about our King Christ is just a flat-out lie. You understand? And we're going to get into that as we go through some scriptures. I got an article we're going to start off in. And this article is about there was a church in the Attawapiskat, how do you pronounce that? The Attawapiskat community. The Attawapiskat community is a native reserve in northern Ontario. It's close to Timmins, Ontario, if you haven't heard of that. And on this reserve, there was an actual church that burnt down. They call it a historic church. And we're going to read this article, and I'm going to expound on why this is such a beautiful thing. All right, so let's get into this article. I'm going to share it on my screen. I dropped the sign-in link for brothers and sisters in the school. If you're watching for the first time, hit the sign-in link. Make sure you sign in. Show your attendance to the men that are in the schools of the I.S.U.P.K. And Lord, allow, if it's something you want, by signing in, eventually you can get some Hebrew benefits, a Hebrew name, and join the school. All right. So this is the article. I'm going to start off with a quick video in the article. The article was titled, "The Attawapiskat Community Reels After Historic Church Destroyed by Fire." All right, and something about this reserve. This is arguably one of the worst reserves to live on in Canada. I think it was in 2012. The United Nations recognized that the people living on this reserve were living like a third world country. In 2010, the United Nations said it's a basic human right for people to have clean water. And this is something that a lot of reserves still don't have till this day. All right, this being one of them. One of the things they did to try to resolve the issue was they dumped loads of chlorine inside their lake. I think that was under Justin Trudeau. They gave them, you could call so-called clean drinking water for a little bit. Really, they're just drinking a ton of chemicals in the water. But that's just some of the things going on in the reserves in Canada. So this reserve, Attawapiskat community, is titled, "It Reels After Historic Church Destroyed by Fire." So I'll play the video just to give you a summary of what happened.
First Nation of Attawapiskat, Ontario's far north, is reeling from the loss of a more than a century-old church. It burned in a fire this week. Some considered it the heart of the community, and there was some treasured Indigenous artwork lost along with the building. We get details from CTV's Sergio Raggio.
This Catholic church, St. Francis Xavier, housed countless memories for people like Rosie Gustafson. With over 100 years of community gatherings and religious services gone up in flames, she says the impact of its loss didn't hit her until she returned home from watching the blaze.
And then I actually was crying and I was just in tears. I was born there. I did my first communion there. I was baptized.
The building was condemned and considered unsafe, but Kustashin says there was always hope it could be refurbished. Timmins James Bay MP Charlie Angus got word of the blaze and says it's a major loss.
The real tragedy was that they really had made that church their space, and local artists had put together stained glass. It didn't reflect the European Christian church imagery, but the imagery of the Cree people themselves, how they related to the land, how they related to their own spirituality.
Kustashin says she and her 10 siblings were all raised Catholic, and amidst years of issues in the community like poor water quality and high suicide rates, plus the lasting impact of the residential school system, she says she always found comfort in the church.
Despite all the things that happen in our lives, but we still believe because it brought hope to us and faith. Even though I'm also a very spiritual Native person.
Kustashin says it's unlikely anything can be recovered from the church, but she hopes the community can build a new one, create new artwork, and build memories for years to come. Sergio Rancio, CTV News, Timmins.
All right, that's it on that video. And again, so this church was a historic church. It's been around for 100+ years over on that reserve. And the name of the church was St. Francis Xavier Catholic Church. And what I thought was interesting about this article is that this happened, I think, let me find the date again. This was published April 23rd of 2021. So this happened very recently. And what I find interesting about this is, if you've been paying attention to the news, just recently over in British Columbia, they found a graveyard on the residential schools of 215 children. And if you look at the history of the Catholic Church, the history of the Christian Church, there is a lot that the Christian Church has to pay for. Understand? There has been so much molestation that goes on in the church. The church is a place you send your kids to go to get molested. The church is where you send your kids to learn all manner of evil. You understand? The church is where you send your kids to become over-sexualized by the age of 10. You understand? There's no rules. There is no guidelines. There is all manner of sin in that Christian church. And to the Most High, seeing something like this is beautiful in the Most High's eyes. You understand? Watching something burn that doesn't represent who he is, who doesn't represent the character of Christ, it is a beautiful thing to see this place destroyed. You understand? So I'm going to go into the article just a little bit to give a little more detail on what happened and what some of the residents are talking about what went on. So it goes on to read, the Catholic Church was not just a place to practice, or this was a lady who wrote this, Rosie Kustashin, was not just a place to practice her religion, it was a place to find comfort from issues impacting Attawapiskat and Indigenous people. Whether it was dealing with their community's water crisis, rising suicide rates, or the generational impact of the residential school system, she said the church had been a place of solace and hope throughout her life, which made it all the more heartbreaking for her to see it catch fire Wednesday evening. So much so, she said the emotions did not catch up with her until she arrived home from watching the blaze. I actually was crying and I was just in tears, Kustashin said in a Zoom interview. I was born there. I did my first communion there. I was baptized there. Somebody else posted on that, I can't believe our old church burnt down today. I was asking our priest, Napahian, who I was standing with. He says it was about 104 years old. I am still in disbelief that it's gone. So many memories from this old church. Yep, it is a sad day today for all of us there. My parents were praying nearby as well. All just watch quietly. Nothing to be done. Goes on to read, Kustashin's parents were married there. As a matter of fact, they told her as they watched the building burn. It had been condemned and declared unsafe, she said, although there was always hope that it could be refurbished or elements of it preserved in a new building. But Kustashin said the fire was too large for the small community's fire team to put out, and it's unlikely anything can be recovered. The fire even damaged the area's telecommunications. It says there was no word yet on a cause, and local police and fire service could not be reached for comment. Among items lost in the blaze are stained glass windows created by local indigenous artists as a part of reconciliation efforts. They really made that church their space. Local artists have put together stained glass that didn't reflect the European Christian church, but that imagery of the Cree people themselves, how they related to the land, how they related to their own spirituality. It goes on to read, whether or not people were religious, Kustashin said the church was the heart of the community and one of its largest structures. She and her 10 siblings were all raised Catholic, she said, and even amidst the historic injustices against indigenous people, religion gives her hope in the face of tragedy. Despite all the things that happen in our lives, we still believe it's because it brought us hope and faith, even though I'm also a very spiritual Native person. She recalled the church's priest in tears as the building burned down, but she reassured him that the community can rebuild, create new artwork, and build new memories. And I'm going to stop there. Now, I hope Native Indians are tuning in. Anybody on reserves, any Native Indian living in Canada, because I pray you understand and I pray you listen to the men in the I.S.U.P.K. when we say building that church back up would be such a waste of time. Understand, Christians do not teach the truth of the Bible. Building that church up again, that is just a place, it's a house of Satan. You understand? Look at what those Catholic priests and those nuns did in the name of their God, in the name of Christianity, to different boys and women or boys and girls in the residential school. You understand? You had Catholic priests raping 12-year-old women, impregnating them and aborting their babies, having those little girls kill their babies after they rape them. Like, you can't, it's so hard to fathom all the evils that has gone on in the name of Christianity. Gonna give a quick shout out to the chat. Shalom, Sarah, daughter of Zion. Shalom, sister Kalapa. Yahweh Shamara Alathan, Ba'ashem Yahushai, sisters. The water for tuning in. There has been so much injustice done on behalf of the Christian church. I think in Quebec, they just recently, you had Catholic priests put out in the news that they're tired of being discriminated against. They're tired of being discriminated against for the molestation going on in the Catholic Church. That is such a disgusting thing to say. You understand? You're a Catholic priest. You should be ashamed of what goes on in that Catholic Church. If you're a Christian pastor, you should be ashamed of what goes on in that Christian church. You understand? None of them teach Christ. None of them teach the true identity of Christ. You understand? Right down to saying that he was a white man, so-called white man with long stringy hair. You understand? The Bible says that he was a black man with woolly hair. You understand? Christians do not teach the truth of the Bible, nor do they teach the true characteristics of Christ. Right? You had those Catholic priests raping those little girls in the name of their God, telling those little girls that God loves everybody. You understand? Those girls must have been looking at those priests like, how does God love you? Why would God love somebody like you? For all the evils that went on in the residential schools. You understand? So we're going to get into some scripture, and we're going to break down the characteristics of our King. We're going to break down some of the characteristics that our King, Christ, actually had. Understand? Not according to the Christian church, but according to the Bible. So we're going to start off in the book of Exodus, chapter 15 and verse 3. And it's so important what brothers are teaching in the I.S.U.P.K. Understand? What we're teaching in the I.S.U.P.K. is changing people's lives all across the world. We're teaching brothers how to treat their wives. We're teaching brothers how to treat each other. You understand? We're teaching brothers to get off drugs. We're teaching brothers not to throw away their wives. You understand? How to protect their families, how to protect their children. You understand? It's so important, the work that we're doing. And Tuesday's night brotherhood class is all about how we treat each other. And we would learn to treat each other better by some of the examples that are left for us in this Bible. Understand? So we're going to look in Exodus 15 and verse 3. And it reads, "The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name." You understand? This is something that Christians have to understand. Right? Those girls on those residential schools, when they were told God loves everybody from that Catholic priest, it must have been confusing as hell to them. But if they understand the truth of the Bible, they would understand that the Lord is a man of war. And what that means to be a man of war is that when you go to battle, that means you are on a side. You understand? The Lord is a man of war, meaning there is a side that the Most High defends. There is a side that the Most High goes to war against. That is a characteristic of the Most High God. Understand? Being at war is picking his side. Right? The true God of the Bible would not have picked the side of those Catholic priests raping those little girls. Understand? In Deuteronomy it says a man is to be put to death for forcefully taking a woman, let alone a goddamn kid. Understand? The Most High is against those things. Yahweh is at war against those evils. Yahweh doesn't want men going around raping women. You understand? He is a man of war. And he is on a side. He has chosen a side. And that's very important to remember as we go through these scriptures. All right? The Bible also says that the Most High doesn't change. He was the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. You understand? He was a man of war 5,000 years ago. Yahweh is a man of war today. All right? So let's jump to the book of John. The book of John, chapter 10 and verse 30. John 10 and verse 30 reads, this is Christ speaking. You understand? This is red letter. And Christ says in verse 30, I and my Father are one. You understand? This is Christ speaking here. And he's saying that him and the Most High are on one accord. They are one. They are on the same page. You understand? What Christ does everything that the Most High wants him to do. Christ speaks on the Most High's behalf. You understand? It's so backwards to think that Christ came and died so that you could continue to be a whore, so that you could continue to sell drugs, so that you could continue to smoke cigarettes. You understand? Christ said, I and my Father are one. The Most High was against rape 5,000 years ago. The Most High is against rape today. And when Christ came, he was speaking the same thing as his Father. You understand? In the book of Matthew, chapter 5 and verse 17, it says, till heaven and earth pass, not one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law until all be fulfilled. You understand? Rape is still wrong today. Rape was wrong in 1960 when those Catholic priests were raping those little girls. You understand? And Christ was 100% against that. Exodus 15 and verse 3 said, the Most High is a God of war, is a man of war. And if the Most High is a man of war, so was Christ. Christ did everything that his Father did. Everything that his Father wanted him to do. Understand? Christ is a man of war, and he picked a side. Christ chose a side to fight against. Salaki. Christ chose a side to fight against. Understand? Christ chose to fight against molestation. Christ chose to fight against rape. Christ chose to fight against cigarettes. You understand? Christ chose to fight against selling drugs and being a drunkard. Understand? These are things that Christ went to war with. Understand? Christ said in, I think John chapter 4, Christ said, I pray for them, I pray not for the world. Understand? Christ didn't come to save everybody. Christ didn't come to love everybody. Christ came to go to war against evil. Understand? Christ wouldn't come and die so that you could continue to smoke cigarettes. You understand? That makes no sense. That's backwards. Understand? I'll read it again. John chapter 10 and verse 30 says, I and my Father are one. Understand? Meaning the Most High is a man of war, so is Christ. Let's jump to the book of Luke, chapter 12 and verse 49. This is the book of Luke, chapter 12 and verse 49. And it reads, I am come to send fire on the earth. Understand? This is Christ speaking again. He says, I am come to send fire. What does fire do? Fire consumes. Fire destroys. You understand? Fire isn't all love. Fire isn't loving everybody. Fire isn't loving homosexuals. Fire isn't loving whoremongers. Fire isn't loving people who smoke cigarettes. You understand? Christ came to send fire on earth. All right, keep reading. It says, I am come to send fire on earth. And what will I, if it be already kindled? You understand? You got to be very careful about having that consuming fire already kindled. You understand? Christ is a man of war. He came and he's coming to destroy things, to be at war with things. You understand? And that fire already being kindled, the scriptures say it's high time to wake up. You understand? Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, we got to be quick to repent of the things that we've been doing. We got to be quick to repent from the life that we've been living. And we got to be quick to follow Christ. Because Christ is sending a consuming fire. Understand? That's what Christ came to do. Christ said to love our brothers, love our sisters. Understand? Never leave our wives. Never leave our husbands. Don't provoke your children to anger. Understand? The scriptures say you should never go to bed angry. Understand? You shouldn't be a man sleeping on your couch at night. You shouldn't be a man who goes to his car to sleep because he couldn't work out an issue with his wife. These are some of the things Christ told us to do. And these are some of the things that we have to be quick to do, quick to follow. Because Christ is sending a consuming fire. All right. Let's jump down to verse 51, and it says, suppose ye that I am come to give peace on earth. Understand? Christ is saying, suppose ye, maybe I did. You understand? This is what a lot of Christians believe. That Christ was all about peace, 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 love, love, love. You understand? Your Christian pastor, you walk through those doors, he tells you to greet everybody, smile at everybody, love everybody, accept everybody. You understand? So this is a question that you might ask yourself. Right? Verse 51 says, suppose ye that I am come to give peace on earth. You understand? Meaning, so what if I did? What if I did come to bring peace? And it goes on to read, I tell you nay, but rather division. Understand? What does that mean to have division? That means integration is bad for us. When he came to send division, Christ came to send a consuming fire. It's letting you know that Christ has chose a side. Christ is a man of war, and he's chosen to be on the Most High's side. Yahweh is a man of war, and there are things that he hates. There are things that he's at war with. You understand? The true God of the Bible, he is against that Catholic priest raping those little girls. The true God of the Bible is against everything that went on in those residential schools. The true God of the Bible is against having contaminated water for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. These are things that the Most High is at war with. These are things that Christ is at war with. And Christ told you I didn't come to bring peace, but division. Understand? Back in 1950s, you had pastors like Martin Luther King going around saying, I have a dream. I have a dream that one day all of us can unite, that blacks and whites can unite, can sit down in a restaurant together and eat food together, that blacks and whites can go to school together. You understand? But Christ said, I didn't come to integrate. I didn't come to send integration. I came to send segregation. I came to separate the lost sheep of the house of Israel away from these other nations. Christ came to separate us from the way of life that these heathens live, from worshiping the God of the Arabians, from worshiping the gods of the Chinese, from worshiping the gods of the Africans. You understand? From joining hand in hand with these Europeans and practicing homosexuality. You understand? Christ did not want us to integrate into this. I think it's Revelations chapter 18 and verse 2 says, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins. You understand? Christ wants us to segregate from Babylon. Christ wants us to separate from these Europeans and these Asians and these Africans. You understand? He doesn't want us living the type of lifestyle that the heathens live. You understand? Moses gave us laws, statutes, and commandments. And those laws, statutes, and commandments were there to show our wisdom in the sight of other nations. It was there to show these other nations on how to live, on how to conduct themselves, on how to treat each other. And these nations, when they would see us in our rulership, seeing us obey the Father, they would see us as a wise and understanding people. You understand? Christ wanted us to have division. You understand? And that's what we're at war with. You understand? That's what Christ is at war with. Let's jump to the book of Matthew, chapter 15 and verse 24. Matthew 15 and 24 says, but he answered and said, this is Christ speaking, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. You understand? Christ was all about division. Christ was all about separation. You understand? This is red letter. This is Christ speaking. Christ is saying, I only came for a certain group of people. I only came for Israel. I only came for the children of God. I only came for blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. You understand? And when he came, Christ came to bring grace. Christ came to bring mercy. Understand? Christ came to bring a spirit of war, a spirit of segregation, a spirit of separation. You understand? Watching that church burn down on that reservation, that is a beautiful thing in the Most High's eyes. You understand? That is a consuming fire. You understand? A consuming fire because of the anger that the Most High has on these heathen. The anger that the Most High has on us worshiping these other gods. You understand? Not worshiping Christ in sincerity and truth. You understand? But the real king, our real king, what this Bible says about him, He was only sent for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. You understand? Anybody in the world can believe him if they want, but only Israel can follow him. You understand? Only Israel can have the promises given from our forefather Abraham. You understand? All the blessings that were laid out for us from the beginning. All right? Christ had a spirit of war. Let's jump to the book of Mark. We're going to jump to Mark chapter 1 and verse 40. All right, we're going to Mark chapter 1. Mark chapter 1 and verse 40. Understand? This is more on the characteristics of Christ. Understand? These verses and these stories in the Bible break down who he was. Understand? Not according to your Catholic priest or your Christian pastor, but according to the Bible. Understand? Quick shout out to the chat. Shalom, Attawapiskat, Yahweh Shimi Ashai Barakatha. Shalom, Janice Bell, Yahweh Shamar Latham Bashimi Ashai. For water for tuning in. All right, so these are more of the characteristics of Christ. We're in the book of Mark, chapter 1 and verse 40. Mark chapter 1 and verse 40 says, "And there came a leper to him, beseeching him." Understand? A leper is a man or woman who you could say today has a skin disease. Understand? A leper is somebody whose skin is starting to change color, probably to the appearance of a whitish color, or a so-called white color. Understand? Leprous is it's a discoloration in your skin. All right, and it says there came a leper man to him. Who is the him? That's Christ. And it says beseeching him. Understand? Beseeching him means begging him. So a leprous man came to Christ begging him, and it reads, "And kneeling down to him, and saying unto him, If thou wilt, thou canst make me clean." Understand? So this leprous man came to Christ begging him to be healed. Understand? He came on his knees. He came in all subjection, begging Christ to perform a miracle on him. All right. Verse 41 says, "And Yahushua moved with compassion." All right. This is a characteristic of Christ. Compassion is something that all Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians need to have. You understand? If Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians had more compassion for each other, a lot of our marriages would last longer. A lot of our friendships would last longer. You understand? There would be a lot less gun violence in our community. You understand? When you saw that woman with her kids, maybe you would second guess selling her drugs because you had compassion on her family. Understand? If we had more compassion for each other, if we carried that spirit of Christ, imagine what our communities would look like. You understand? It says, "And Yahushua moved with compassion. He put forth his hand and touched him, and saith unto him, I will, be thou clean." You understand? Yahushua had compassion on this man. When this man came up to him, he didn't just push him away. He didn't just look at a brother that was struggling and tell him to go away. You understand? When that woman came to him in Matthew 15, he told that dog to get away from him. Understood? He sent women and men of other nations away from him because he didn't come for those people. But as for the children of Israel, he did come for our people. And when this man came up to him begging him to be healed, Yahweh showed compassion on that man. You understand? We got to understand that Christ loved us even until death. Christ had the most amount of compassion that any man has ever had on the people. Understand? Christ was beaten, spit on, degraded, and before he died on the cross, he asked the Father to forgive those people. Understand? Even until death, Yahweh showed compassion. And that's the kind of spirit that we have to have. All right, verse 42 says, and as soon as he had spoken, immediately the leprosy departed from him, and he was cleansed. Meaning this leprous man came to Christ, asked him to be healed, and Christ healed him. Understand? Christ showed compassion on this man, and he healed that brother. Understand? Christ wasn't a bully. He had compassion. Verse 43 says, and he straightly charged him, and forthwith sent him away. So verse 43 is saying, and after he healed him, after Christ healed this leprous man, he charged him. He gave this man an order. And what was this order? Verse 44 says, and saith unto him, see thou say nothing to any man. Understand? After Christ healed this man, he told him, he gave him an order and told him, don't tell anybody what I did. All right? Christ was a very humble man. Christ was a man of war. Christ was a man of compassion. And Christ was a man of humility. You understand? Christ told this man, don't tell anybody what I've done. That's the kind of spirit that under commanding General YAHANNA, he is raising brothers and sisters up to have in this truth. Understand? I've heard General Mahaiman say a couple times that he is not allowed to speak about some of the things that General YAHANNA has done. Understand? And that is because General YAHANNA follows Christ. General YAHANNA is the most humble man that you will meet on the face of the earth today. Commanding General YAHANNA is the leader of this school. And he is teaching brothers and sisters to follow Christ. He is teaching brothers and sisters to have the same spirit that Christ had. You understand? That is a spirit of humility, a spirit of compassion, a spirit of war. Understand? Christ told this man, keep silent. Because Christ wasn't chasing fame. Right? When you look in the world today, you have people like LeBron James or Jay-Z or Beyonce. Understand? These are so-called famous people. And what has their fame done for this world? What has their fame done for those children on those residential schools? What has their fame done for all these people in the ghettos, the barrios, and reservations? You understand? How has their fame changed the lives of our communities? Understand? A basketball isn't going to do anything for our communities. A football isn't going to do anything for our communities. But being a humble man, a compassionate man, following Christ and doing what he says, those are the types of things that would change our nation. You understand? So verse 44 says, and saith unto him, see thou say nothing to any man, but go thy way, show thyself to the priest, and offer for thy cleansing those things which Moses commanded. Understand? This is something that's so important that the Christian church doesn't understand. Not only was Christ a humble brother, but he charged this man to keep quiet. And he said, do those things which Moses commanded. What are the things that Moses commanded? Moses said that it's not okay to rape a woman. You understand? That's not what those Catholic priests were teaching. Moses said it's not okay to eat pork. Moses said pay your tithes. Moses said don't be a drug dealer. You understand? Moses said don't sleep with your brother's wife. This was the order that Christ gave a man. You understand? And this is the spirit that we have to walk in. He said, do what Moses commanded. You understand? And what Moses commanded was brotherhood. Moses commanded to love your brothers like yourself. You understand? Moses commanded to forgive your brothers, not to bear a grudge against the children of thy people. You understand? Moses commanded that we correct each other and look out for one another. You understand? That's the spirit that we have to walk in. Let's go to the book of Mark, chapter 7. We go to Mark 7, verse 31. Mark 7 and verse 31 says, and again, departing from the coast of Tyre and Sidon, he came unto the Sea of Galilee, through the midst of the coast of Decapolis. So again, this is something that Christ was doing. Understand? Christ was walking around the country. He was going through the coast, through city to city, town to town. And as he went through these cities, verse 32 says, and they bring unto him one that was deaf, and had an impediment in his speech. Salakia. And they bring unto him one that was deaf, and had an impediment in his speech. Understand? So again, this is Christ going around through the towns, through the cities, and the people brought up to him a man who was deaf, a man who couldn't hear. And if you've ever seen somebody in the world today who can't hear or who is deaf, a lot of them have a problem talking. A lot of them have speech impediments because they've never heard anything. Understand? They haven't heard anything and they can't hear what they're saying. So they don't know what's coming out their mouth. You understand? So this brother that came up to him, that was brought to him, was deaf and had a speech impediment. And it reads in verse 32, and they beseech him to put his hands upon him. So again, this brother, he was begging Christ to put his hands on him. He was begging Christ to heal him. He heard about some of the miracles that Christ was doing, and he begged Christ to lay his hands on him. You understand? We really have to understand how valuable and how important it is to show compassion on our people. Understand? And it reads, verse 33, and he took him aside from the multitude and put his fingers into his ears, and he spit and touched his tongue. Verse 34, and looking up to heaven, he sighed and saith unto him, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. Understand? That word just means be open. You understand? Christ was commanding that his ears be open. He looked at that brother, he put his fingers in his ears. You understand? Imagine him spitting on the ground and commanding him to be healed, commanding his ears to be open. You understand? Christ showed compassion on our people. Christ showed compassion to blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. You understand? This is something that's so important. You know, if you ever go to a restaurant to buy some food and you see a brother or sister buying a meal and they're $2 short, help them out if you can. Understand? Throw them $2. Pay for their meal. Hand them over 50 cents or something. You understand? What's $1? What's $2? What's $20? Understand? We got to show compassion on our people. This is something that we've lost, and this is one of the spirits of Christ. Understand? This is one of the spirits that Christ carried, that he embodied. That spirit of war, spirit of compassion, and that humble spirit. And it reads, verse 35, and straightway his ears were opened, and the string of his tongue was loosed, and he spake plain. Meaning Christ healed this brother. Verse 36, and he charged them that they should tell no man. Understand? Again, this is the spirit of Christ. He charged these brothers. He ordered these brothers. Don't tell anybody what I've done. Understand? Christ wasn't seeking fame. Understand? This is something so important when it comes to serving the Most High. Understand? We can't be chasing fame. Understand? But we can chase a good reputation. There's a difference. Understand? You treat your wife good, you treat your kids good, you treat your brothers good, people will talk about you. Understand? People will talk about the good works you've done and the good works that you do. That's having a good reputation. And that's something all of us should strive for. All of us should strive to be just like Christ, to live the way he lived, to talk the way he talked, to have the compassion that he had. Understand? Compassion is something that you do. It's an action that you show. Understand? Compassion is taking the shirt off your back and giving it to your brother. Understand? Compassion is picking your brother up off the side of the road and giving him a ride home. You understand? If it's safe and Lord allow it. You understand? Compassion is loving on your people. This is something that we have to start doing. Understand? But we got to understand that Christ didn't chase fame. Understand? Christ was very humble. What should drive us in this work that we do Understand, brothers and sisters in the I.S.U.P.K, we should be fighting to make our election sure. Understand, we got to understand that we are called and we are chosen. Understand, it's our job to answer that call and to make our election sure. Our motivation shouldn't be getting the biggest trophy. Understand, our motivation shouldn't be what other brothers and sisters say about us in the school. Understand, our motivation should be making our election sure. Our motivation should be what we do behind closed doors, what we do in the dark. Understand, what the Most High sees when it's just you and him and another brother in front of you. Understand, when it's just the Most High and you and your wife. Understand, the things that you do in darkness, those are the things that you should be looking for the Most High to reward you with or reward you for. Understand, our motivation has to be making our election sure. Understand, making our seal sure. The book of Revelation chapter 7 talks about the 144,000 men that were sealed. You understand, 12,000 men from each tribe. You understand, we got to make our election sure by doing what Christ says, whether it's in the light or in the darkness. You understand, not being motivated by being famous, but being motivated by serving Christ. All right. Let's jump to the book of Luke, chapter 12, and verse 39. Salakia. We're going to jump to the book of Jeremiah chapter 9 and verse 23. This is Jeremiah chapter 9 and verse 23, and it says, "Thus saith the Lord, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom." You understand? This is thus saith the Lord. You understand? This is the spirit of Yahweh. You understand? This is the spirit of Christ. Christ said, I and my Father are one. You understand? Christ had the same spirit that the Most High had. And the Most High said, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom. You understand? We can't be going around having this prideful spirit. We can't be going around belittling brothers or sisters because we graduated high school and they didn't. Understand? We can't go around belittling brothers and sisters because we graduated college and somebody else didn't. You understand? We shouldn't be going around or have the spirit of, look at me, look at how many degrees I have. You understand? Look at the Ivy League school I went to, all the credentials that I have, all the studying that I've done. You understand? King Solomon said, I'm paraphrasing, he said, the study of many books is tiring and vexation of spirit. You understand? Reading 1,000 books and having all the wisdom in the world, you understand, is not something to be glorifying yourself about. Understand? If another brother and sister bigs you up because of what you're doing and what you've accomplished, so be it. You understand? The scriptures say, let another man esteem you. You understand? Let another man hold you in a high regard. You understand? We can't be having the spirit of glorifying in the wisdom of this world. You understand? That's not a spirit that the Most High had, and that's not the spirit that Christ had. And it reads, neither let the mighty man glory in his strength. Slakia. Thus saith the Lord, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might. Understand again, just because you're in the gym every day, because you're in the gym 7 days a week, drinking creatine and protein and taking whatever steroids that the world has to offer, you understand, walking around like a bodybuilder, that's not something to glory in. That's not something to boast about. You understand? Just because you made it in some political or won some political race, you understand, and you're in some high place of authority, it's not something to glory in. You understand? A judge shouldn't be looking down on a garbage man. You understand? And this is the spirit of the Most High. You understand? This was the spirit of Christ. And it reads, and let not the rich man glory in his riches. You understand? Don't think because you have money you're better than somebody else. Don't think because you're in some high place in society that you're better than somebody else. You understand? I know a lot of brothers in the world who they never graduated high school. Understand? And they're working, making over $2,000 a week in construction. Understand? A lot of these brothers, they can't read or write. Understand? They can't read blueprints. They can't read or write. You understand? And they're making a lot more money than a person that goes to college for 4 years. You understand? A lot of these brothers are making 3 figures or 6 figures. Understand? And they've never passed grade 9 English or math. You understand? The wisdom of this world is not something to glory in. Understand? Just because you get a good paycheck, that's not something to glory in. Understand? Just because you're a mighty man of strength, it's not something to glory in. What we should be glorying in is being honorable men and women. We should be glorying ourselves in trying to follow Christ and doing what he said. Understand? Verse 24 says, but let him that glorieth glory in this. You understand? Meaning this is what we should glory in. This is what Christ would glory in. And it reads, that he understandeth and knoweth me, that I am the Lord which exercise loving kindness. You understand? These are some of the things that we should be glorying in. You understand? The Most High exercises loving kindness. You understand? The Most High isn't just a man of war. The Most High is also of love. You understand? That's different from what your Christian pastor has taught. Saying God is all love is all love. The Most High is also a man of war. But in the scriptures, he also does love. You understand? We got to exercise loving kindness to one each other. You understand? We got to keep the laws, statutes, and commandments. Keep the laws of brotherhood. Keep the laws of sisterhood. We got to exercise this kindness to one another. You understand? And we should glory in judgment and righteousness in the earth. You understand? And this is for those natives over on that reserve. You got to understand that the Most High says that we should glory in judgment. You understand? Meaning, when the Most High says that a man that rapes a woman should be put to death, don't think that those Catholic priests that rape those kids in the residential schools isn't going to be judged. You understand? It's a glorious thing to judge the evil in this world. You understand? It's a righteous thing to judge all the evils in this world. You understand? Shalom, Adawan, Yabashim, Shabrakatha.
Hey, Shalom, Aki, Abashim, Shabrakatha.
Hey, everything to Wab, sir?
I'm Tuab Khan.
Oh, Most High in Christ. We're just in Jeremiah chapter 9 and verse 24.
Khan.
Understand? So these are the things we should glory in. He says, but let him that glorieth glory in this. But let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me. Understand? We got to glory ourselves in knowing the Most High. That I am the Lord, which exercise loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, saith the Lord. Understand? That Catholic church that burnt down at Attawapiskat or Attawapiskat, that church that burned down, that is a glorious thing to the Most High.
Right.
You understand? Because all the evils that went on from that Christian church, all the evils that went on from those Catholic priests and those Catholic nuns, understand? The Most High delights in these things. All right. Let's jump to the book of John, chapter 15 and verse 13. John chapter 15 and verse 13. Oh, Salakia, Adawan, can you grab that for me?
Khan, I'm on my way right now.
That's right, please.
You said 15 and 13?
Follow, don't come.
John 15:13. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends.
God, this is the foundation of our walk. You understand? This verse right here is one of the foundations of brotherhood and sisterhood in the I.S.U.P.K.
Right.
Understand? This is something that Christ did for us. Understand? Christ laid down his life for us. Christ died for us. Understand? And he did that so that the first thing we can give up is our old life. Understand? The first thing that we should at least do is kill that old man. Understand? Kill that old self. Understand? We should put away the things that we used to do and become born again like he told us to. You understand? Read that again, Baba Kasha.
Khan. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends.
Right. We got to lay down our lives for our friends. You understand? First, we should lay down our old lives. You understand? Become brand new.
Right.
Keep these laws, statutes, and commandments. You understand? And eventually, you'll learn how to lay down your life for your friends. You understand? You'll be able to move in the same spirit that Christ had. You understand? When you learn to die, learn to kill your old self. You understand? You can begin to follow Christ and do what he says. You understand? And laying down your life for your friend is one of the most beautiful things you could do for a brother. You understand? Laying down your life for your friend is a very extreme thing to do for a brother. You understand? It's a very extreme thing to do for a sister. But if we could kill our old selves and learn to follow Christ, understand, maybe, just maybe, we'd be able to do exactly what Christ did. All right? Let's jump to the book of Philippians chapter 2 and verse 3. All right. These are the characteristics of Christ. You understand? Christ sacrificed himself for us. Christ was a man of war. Christ was compassionate. Christ was humble. And these are the things that we have to embody as Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. You understand? We can't be reaching our own fame, our own vainglory. You understand? But we got to learn to humble ourselves down and throw away our old lies. You understand? We got to admit that we don't know any better, that we don't know how to live our lives, that we don't know how to live righteously and make good decisions. And in doing that, we could start to follow Christ. All right. Read that when you got it.
Philippians 2, verse 4.
Salakia. Verse 3.
Verse 3. Philippians 2, verse 3. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory.
Right. Don't do anything out of anger. Don't do anything out of vainglory. Understand? Vainglory is doing something for fame.
Right.
Doing something for yourself. Understand? This is the spirit of Christ. This is what Christ taught his disciples, and this is what his disciples are passing on to us. Keep reading.
But in loneliness of mind, let each esteem other better than themselves.
But in low esteem. Meaning Christ taught his disciples to be humble. You understand? Christ healed those people and told them, don't tell anybody what I've done.
Right.
You understand? Christ was a very humble brother. And he taught his disciples to do the same thing. You understand? He said, but in lowliness of mind. Understand? Don't think so highly of yourself. Understand? Do things on a low scale. Be humble. You understand? Everybody doesn't need to know all the good works you're doing. Right? I've seen officers of Abadia do things that I don't think I've never heard him or will never see him talk about. You understand? He showed true brotherhood to a brother out in Montreal, and I'll never forget what he did. You understand? And I'll talk about him, and I'll hold him to a high esteem. You understand? This brother saw a brother on the street, you understand, and gave him some breakfast. You understand? This is a brother who loves his people. This is a brother who has compassion on his people. You understand? Officers of Badia embodies that spirit of compassion, that spirit of Christ. You understand? He embodies that mindset of being humble. You understand? You don't see him going around telling the world, hey, I fed that brother that morning. You understand? And I can guarantee this brother has done so many other things in the dark. You understand? When it's just the Most High in him. You understand? What he does in the dark, those are the things that the Most High will reward him for. You understand? That's that humble mind, that lowly spirit that we have to embody. You understand?
The water for your kind words.
Khan, sir. Can you read that again?
Khan. Philippians 2, verse 3. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in low esteem, Salakia, but in loneliness of mind. Let each esteem other better than themselves.
And it's not only should we have that humble spirit, but it's also a righteous thing to esteem your brothers. You understand? It's also a righteous thing to esteem your sisters. You understand? To talk about the good works that they do.
Right.
You understand? To give those brothers and sisters some motivation to keep on doing what they're doing. You understand? That's the kind of spirit that we got to carry. Keep reading verse 4.
Come on. Verse 4. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others.
And the spirit we should be carrying is we shouldn't be going around telling everybody, look at what we have. You understand? We shouldn't be going around saying, look at how beautiful my car is. Look at how
Right.
beautiful my wife is. Look at how beautiful my jewelry is. You understand? It would be, you see brothers in the I.S.U.P.K, it would be a weird thing for a brother to come out and say, yo, check out this fly garment I got. Look at how fly I am. Look at how beautiful my garment is.
Right.
You understand? When you see the spirit of the men in the I.S.U.P.K, we see another brother's garment and we esteem him.
Right.
Understand? We talk about what he has. We talk about how fly his garment is. We talk about how fly his shades are. You understand? That's the kind of spirit that we got to have. You understand? And that's the kind of spirit that Christ had. You understand? Keep reading.
Verse 5. Let this mind be you, Salakia. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus.
This is the same humble spirit that Yahushua had. You understand? This is the same humble spirit that Christ had. You understand? This is the kind of humble spirit that we have to have. You understand? We got to be a people. We got to be a people of war. We got to be a people of compassion.
Right.
Understand? We got to be a people of humility. Understand? Not walking around all prideful and boastful. Understand? And more importantly, we have to be a people of God. You understand? We got to be a people who follows and obeys everything that the Most High tells us. You understand? That's got to be our motivation in this truth. You understand? Making our election sure by doing everything that the Most High tells us. You understand? The scriptures say to work out your salvation in fear and in trembling. You understand? We really got to check ourselves, monitor ourselves. You understand? Make sure that we're moving in the right spirit. You understand? And these are the kinds of things that we got to pray for. You understand? These are the kinds of things that we go on fast for. You understand? To actually pray for the Father's will to be done. You understand? The Father's will isn't for you to win the lottery. You understand? You shouldn't be praying for the Most High to bless you with $10 million.
Right.
You understand? That's not the spirit that we should have, but we should be praying for the Father's will to be done. You understand? If Christ was compassionate, we should be praying to be more compassionate. You understand? If Christ was humble, we should be praying to be more humble. You understand? If Christ came to send division and segregation, you understand? We got to be praying to be moving in that same spirit. You understand? Not to be joining hands in hands with all the heathen. You understand? And attaching ourselves to every single type of lifestyle there is that goes against the Most High. Right? These are the kinds of things that we got to pray for. Keep reading.
Verse 6. Who being in the form, Salakia, who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God.
And all that means is Christ said he was on one accord with the Most High. Keep reading.
Khan. Philippians 2 verse 7. But made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men.
Khan. Christ said, don't tell anybody that I healed you. Understand? Christ said, don't tell anybody that I cured you of leprosy. Christ said that don't go around and tell everybody that I healed you from being deaf. You understand? Christ took on himself of no reputation. You understand? But he took on him the form of a servant. You understand? We got to understand that what Christ did and who Christ was, he is a better man than any of us will ever be.
Right.
You understand? And our King took on the form of a servant. You understand? Think about what happened to George Floyd a year ago. You understand? If Christ was there that day, do you really think that he would let cops kneel on another brother's neck for 8 minutes? You understand? Like, Christ came as a servant. Christ was our king. You understand? He came to serve blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. You understand? Christ came and he died for us. You understand? Like, what would it have been for a brother to go and push a cop off that brother's neck? You understand? Like, what are you worried about? You're going to go to jail? You're going to get tased? You understand? You're going to get thrown to the ground and handcuffed? Understand? So what? Our king died for us. Understand? We really got to check the spirit that we're moving. Understand? We really got to check the type of compassion that we have for brothers and sisters. You understand? And I can guarantee you, if Officer Zabadi was there that day, there's no way in hell that cop would sit on that guy's neck for 8 minutes. You understand? And we hear of stories like that of brothers doing amazing things in the I.S.U.P.K. Understand? Like, Salakia, Adawan, do you remember that story? You remember that story of the brother that lifted that car off that child?
Salakia, no, that's slipping my mind at the moment.
Okay, no sweat. Yeah, it's slipping my mind a bit too, but I'll just say that there are definitely stories in the I.S.U.P.K. of brothers doing amazing things.
Right.
You understand? Just by having a little of the spirit that Christ had. You understand? That's just to being, you know what I mean, a tenth of the man that Christ was.
Right.
And the things that we're able to accomplish, you understand, just learning to be like who he was. You understand? We are changing and saving lives. You understand? We are changing and fixing marriages. We are fixing friendships and relationships.
Right.
And creating long-lasting brotherhoods and long-lasting families. You understand? We're performing all different types of miracles. You understand? And we do that by moving in the spirit of Christ.
Right. Salaki, if I may.
Come.
And that's so heavy what you're saying, because like the men and women in the I.S.U.P.K, they do so much for each other, and we're not trying to get rich off each other. You don't hear of us saying we got some water in a jar that's holy And you won't see us taking off our garment and trying to fan a crowd of people talking about you're healed. Right? We don't do those blasphemous type of things where you try to convince the whole world that you're some type of healer, where you blow in a camera and say coronavirus is gone. Right? And a year and a half later, coronavirus is still here.
Right. That's exactly it. Look at the Christian church today.
Right.
And its doors have been closed for over a year.
Right.
You understand? The Christian church is not a place of miracles and, understand, doing the will of the Father. Understand? But every school in I.S.U.P.K has been open and stayed open since the COVID-19 came out.
Right.
Understand? We're doing real miracles and real work in here. Understand? Keep reading, Baba Kasha.
God. Second Philippians verse Salakias. Philippians 2 verse 8. And being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross.
God, this is just reiterating, we better humble ourselves out here.
Right.
And we need to turn to the Most High God. Understand? To love our brothers, love our sisters more than we love our filthy selves. Understand? There's a consuming fire that Christ is sending. Understand? Christ is coming to bring division. Understand? Because Christ is a man of war, just as his Father is a man of war. And we got to stop gambling and listening to what the Most High says. Understand? We got to stop gambling with our lives and be obedient unto death. Understand? Just like Christ was.
Right.
All right. Let's jump to 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 17.
God. 1 Peter 2:17. Honor all men. Love the brotherhood. Fear God. Honor the king.
Can you read that again, Baba Kasha?
God. Honor all men. Love the brotherhood. Fear God. Honor the king.
God, we gotta honor all men. You understand? Honor all men means to have high respect or have a great esteem for our brothers and sisters. You understand? Something that we gotta understand is that when Christ was telling his disciples to honor all men, we gotta understand that Christ was only sent for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Understand? Christ said to honor your brothers and your sisters. Honor the children of God. Honor blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. And we should honor them because they are God's children. Understand? They are God's chosen people. Understand? A people that are near unto him. A holy and separate people. Understand? When you see a brother walking down the street, you got to understand that that is a child of God. You understand? And it's important to have high respect and great esteem for that brother. You understand? It's important to watch how we talk to brothers and sisters. You understand? Don't think the Most High isn't paying attention to everything that we do. everything that we say. You understand? The Most High doesn't just love you. You got to understand, he loves all blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. You understand?
Right.
And for that, we have to honor all men, all Israel. Understand? And he says, love the brotherhood. You understand? Brotherhood is synonymous with sisterhood. You got to love the brotherhood, love the sisterhood. Hold your brother to a high respect. Understand? A high esteem, and love your brothers. Understand? And we got to fear God. Understand? We got to fear the Most High. We got to obey the Most High. Understand? Fear is to obey. Fear is to do what he says. Understand? If I try to picture, if you had a gun being held to your head, understand, and that man said, give me your wallet, you're probably going to hand that wallet over. You understand? You're going to hand it over because you fear him. You fear what he can do to you. Understand? And that's a small analogy that I take with myself when I think of the Most High.
Right.
You understand? When he tells me to do something, I got to be afraid of the punishment that's coming. Understand? You got to look at history. You know, look at what he did to our people. Or Salakia. Look at all the punishments that befell the children of Israel. Understand? Look at all the lynchings. Look at the ghettos, the barrios, the reservations. Understand? Look at all our families falling apart. You understand? Like when you look at the history of our people, there's got to be a point in time where we say, we're sick of this happening to us.
Right.
Understand? We're sick of being on the bottom and taking all these punishments. Understand? We gotta come back to the Most High and obey him. We should be very afraid of what he can do. Understand? And this is our duty. Fear God and honor the king. It's our duty to honor the king. Understand? Christ is our king. And it's not a hard job to do. It's not hard to honor Christ. It's not hard to honor Yahushua. It's not hard to hold him to a high esteem because everything that this man did was worthy of being respected. Everything that Christ did was worthy of being talked about. Understand? From generation to generation. And because of what he did, he's worthy of being our king. He's worthy of sitting on that throne and having the rulership and the place that he has in the kingdom. You understand? Christ showed compassion. Christ showed humility. Understand? Christ died for us. Understand? He showed compassion unto death. Understand? Even before he was put to death, he said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Understand? He showed compassion right up to the end. And it would be wise for us to start taking on the characteristics and the spirit of Christ. All right. Let's jump to Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 13.
Huh. Ecclesiastes 12:13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man.
God, and this is what we got to do. You understand? The scriptures say to keep the commandments, and the commandments are not grievous. You understand? It's not a grievous thing to stop eating pork.
Right.
It's not a grievous thing to stop smoking weed. You understand? It's not a grievous thing not to sleep with your brother's wife. You understand? These commandments are good for us. Understand? These commandments teach us how to love ourselves.
Right.
And how to throw away cigarettes. Understand? And stop hurting our bodies. Understand? These commandments are good for us. The Most High doesn't want us eating pork, shrimp, crab, and lobster, dying of high blood pressure and all these different blood diseases. Understand? It's not a grievous thing to keep these commandments. You understand? And these commandments, if you were to wrap it all up into what the scriptures call the royal law, Christ said to love the Most High with all your heart and to love your brother as yourself. Understand? Christ said that as you learn to love the Most High, you'll learn to love yourself. And as you learn to love yourself, you'll learn to love your brothers and sisters. Understand? And Christ kept every single one of these laws. You understand? Christ was perfect. He didn't break any of the commandments. He kept all the high holy days. You understand? He was the best brother anybody could have. You understand? That's the spirit of our King. You understand? And that's what I pray that those brothers and sisters on that reservation, I pray that they come to know. You understand? I pray that you come to know, to see the type of man that Christ was. You understand? The scriptures say Christ was an austere man, a militant man. You understand? He was all about discipline and order. He would never want any of those atrocities that happened on those residential schools to happen to any of his people. You understand? And he's going to war with that. He's going to war for us. He's going to war for all those kids in the residential schools. He's going to war for all blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. You understand? He's just waiting for us to get ourselves together and be worthy of his rulership. You understand? Right. Worthy of sitting in that kingdom with us. You understand? So we got to check ourselves. You understand? We got to watch ourselves and really watch that we're moving in the spirit of Christ. Matter of fact, let's jump to Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 9.
Okay. Deuteronomy 4 verse 9. Only take heed to thyself.
Read that again.
Only take heed to thyself.
Come on, we got to take heed to ourselves. You understand? We really got to watch ourselves and what we're doing. We can't be worried about what everybody else around us is doing.
Right.
You understand? Like, again, this motivation that we have in the I.S.U.P.K, we got to be motivated about making our election sure. You understand? Nobody's going to push you to doing the work of the Most High. Nobody's going to tell you that you have to put your brick in. Nobody's going to tell you that you have to go to the highways and byways and do what Christ commanded you to do. You understand? But you got to take heed of thyself. You understand? You got to be focused on making your own election sure. You understand? We can't be chasing fame like Christ said. We got to be humble. Understand? We can't be worried about getting a trophy for what we do. You understand? We got to put our brick in and do this to make our election sure. You understand? The scriptures say what you do in the dark, the Most High will reward you for what you do in the dark. You understand? You don't got to go around and be boastful and telling everybody what you're doing for the Most High. But you got to really take heed to thyself. Check yourself. Check your motivations. Check why you're doing the things that you do. You understand? We got to make our own election sure. Keep reading.
Come. And keep thy soul diligently, Least thou
And keep thy soul diligently means, and you got to work at it. You understand? You got to learn to be righteous.
right.
You understand? The scriptures say to rehearse righteous acts. You understand? You don't get a good shot in basketball just by playing for 10 minutes. You understand? You got to go to the gym 5 days a week and take 2,000 shots a night. You understand? You do that every day for 5 years. You know what I mean? Eventually, you might start getting a decent shot. You understand? These are things that are practical. You understand? It says, keep thy soul diligently. You got to work at yourself. Understand? You got to rehearse righteous acts. You got to practice being righteous. You got to practice being more like Christ. You got to practice being humble. Understand? You got to practice being compassionate. Understand? These are things that we can and should do. Understand? These are the things, like I said earlier, we should be praying about to be better brothers and sisters. You understand? Keep reading.
Lest thou forget the things which thine eyes have seen.
God, and we got to do this so that we don't forget the things that our eyes have seen. Understand? We got to remember that place where we were at when we first came in this truth.
Right.
Understand? We got to remember how the Most High changed our lives. We got to remember the different miracles and the different things that the Most High is doing in our lives. Understand? We can't forget those things. Understand? Because that will help us motivate ourselves to keep practicing at being righteous. Understand? It will help remind us to take heed to ourselves and work at being better brothers and sisters. You understand? Keep reading.
God. And lest they depart from thy heart all the days of thy life.
So that you don't depart from righteousness. Let's jump to 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 16.
God.
1 Timothy 4 and verse 16, Brother Chef.
God. 1 Timothy 4 and 16. Take heed unto thyself and unto the doctrine. Continue in them. For in doing this, thou shalt both save thyself and them that hear thee.
Again, we got to really watch ourselves. Understand? We got to take heed unto ourselves. We got to watch everything that we do. Understand? We got to watch ourselves to make sure we're moving in the spirit of Christ. You understand? And to remember the doctrine. You understand? Remember the first time you heard a brother on the street tell you that we got to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments.
Right.
Understand? We got to remember how this truth changed our lives. Understand? We got to remember all the good things that this truth is doing in our lives. You understand? When we learn to be more like Christ, understand? We learn to start treating our wives better. Understand? We learn to be more brotherly. And in trying to encompass and embody that spirit that Christ had, we got to remember and see the difference in our relationships. Understand? We should be able to look at how our relationship with our wives is going, and we should be able to see that this doctrine is a good doctrine.
Right.
Understand? We should be able to remember and see that these laws, statutes, and commandments are good for us. You understand? We should be able to see all the people we were able to detach ourselves from. You understand? Not getting in trouble hanging around the same people that brought us down. You understand? This doctrine is good for us. You understand? This doctrine helps us be better brothers and sisters. Let's jump to We jump to let's jump to Revelation chapter 7.
Salaki, you said Revelations.
Revelation 7, and I think we'll start at verse 3.
Khan. Revelation 7, verse 3. Saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads.
God. And the Most High is saying here, Christ isn't coming back until he has sealed the servants of our God. You understand? All those angels of death, all those angels that work for the Most High. You understand? All those angels of war. You understand? He is saying, don't hurt the earth until his servants are sealed. Meaning blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, we got to gather ourselves together.
Right.
Yeah, we got to gather ourselves together and come under our King Christ. You understand? We got to gather ourselves together and change the way we've been living. You understand? Because these angels aren't coming until his servants are sealed. You understand? These angels aren't coming until these men are doing what the Most High requires us to do. You understand? Keep reading.
Khan. Verse 4. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and they were sealed in 144,000, all the tribes of the children of Israel.
God. Because this is what we're waiting for. We're waiting for the children of Israel, these men of Israel, to be sealed. You understand? This has got to be our motivation in this truth. You understand? We got to seal our election. You understand? We were called. You understand? We were chosen. You understand? And it's our job to answer that call and seal our election. Make our election sure unto death. You understand? Meaning, whatever we do in the dark, whatever we do in closed doors, the Most High is watching that. You understand? We can never do enough work for the Most High.
Right.
You understand? There's nothing that we can do that is worthy enough of us being sealed. You understand? We will never be, or Salaki, how should I say that? In order for these men to be sealed, we have to be doing what Christ said. You understand? When he says that, and I heard the number of these men sealed, meaning just like Christ on the cross had compassion unto death, we have to do the work of the Most High unto death. You understand? We can't stop putting our brick in just because we get tired of doing the work of the Most High. You understand? Like, we got to understand that Christ died for us and we owe Christ a debt.
Right.
Understand? Christ died for us and we owe Christ our life. You understand? We got to repay that debt. It's brotherly to repay that debt. You understand? Real brotherhood is obeying Christ, repaying what he did for us. You understand? And with that, I'm going to end Tuesday's night brotherhood class. You understand? And it's just important just to remember that these are the spirits of Christ. You understand? These are the spirit that Christ embodied. You understand? War, compassion, humility. You understand? Love. Right down to dying for his brothers and sisters. You understand? And these are the things that we got to do, that we got to learn to do as men and women under commanding General YAHANNA. Understand? And
Right.
with that, we'll end the class. Let's clap it up. Yes, Salakia. With that, we're going to give the I.S.U.P.K security announcements. We are the I.S.U.P.K, start out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for new brothers and sisters. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There is another 6 months in which a brother and sister will court each other. After this 6-month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment. You can find it in Numbers chapter 18, verse 21, and Malachi chapter 3, verses 8 to 10. Ma'ashra means tenth in the Hebrew. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you, give to the treasury department or teacher. Priest fund, free will offering for priests is not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like to give, please give. Upcoming holy convocations, we got the Feast of First Fruits coming up on June 21st. If you're a brother or sister in Canada, you can contact Officer of 500 Zabadia for more information on the Feast of First Fruits. Or you can contact your camp leader. The camp leader of Canada is Officer of 5,000 Aban. With that, we're going to give a courtesy salute to the brothers. Men of Israel, I.M.A.J.M, which means stand. We're going to first give a courtesy salute to the brothers. Men of Israel, I.M.A.J.M Shabbat. I.M.A.J.M, Barak. Yahweh Shem Yahshai Barak all the brothers. Yad Yom Matah, which means hands down. We're going to give a courtesy salute to the sisters. Men of Israel, I.M.A.J.M Shabbat. I.M.A.J.M, Barak. Yahweh Shamar Yad Yom Matah. Class dismissed.